All right, so now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the workbench project that I'm currently working on. And so, if you're not interested in workbenches, this video is not for you. If you are interested in workbenches, you might find this video to be somewhat interesting. So, as with any project in which there's a substantial research phase, I suppose, I've been doing considerable, watching of YouTube videos to kind of get inspiration, direction, wisdom for my workbench project. Now, you might say, well, why do you need a workbench? Well, I don't currently have a nice workbench set up in a outbuilding of some kind. So we do have some buildings separate from our house, but none of them are really fully conducive to kind of an inside shop types arrangement. So my thought is that I would like to have a workbench that I can wheel outside very easily, and it can work outdoors. I can make a mess out there, and it's not a problem for Whereas depending on where I would be inside or whatever, it can be and I might make, there's a space I could potentially make as an indoor workshop if I wanted to, but then when you have storage combined with it, then you're like looking at dust and dust collection potentially and all kinds of issues there. So I'm really looking for something where I can go out, I can take my workbench outside, I can make dust with it, and it's not a problem. So, and of course, I have plenty of space and the various benefits that come from, just working outside. So, I want it to be. It's got to be on casters, which I do have. I do have a set of casters now. They're ordered from Amazon. I'm pretty happy with them so far. We'll see how they work out. 4-inch casters. And I have very basic tools. Most of my cutting I do with a circular saw. I don't actually have a table saw or even a miter saw. So I have very basic tools. But the circular saw, you can cut almost, it's probably the single most versatile saw that you can cut pretty well anything with. It's kind of the master, it's kind of the jack of all trades saw. And so what I'm hoping to do is to have this workbench be set up specifically to make working with the circular saw very convenient. And so now I may at some point, invest in some more tools and some bigger tools. But while I don't really have, it's not a high financial priority for me at this point. And so I want to just kind of have a very functional setup to where for my basic tools that this workbench is really easy to use, and it makes it really easy to use those basic tools. So my current plan is to make a workbench. It's probably somewhere around 2 feet wide, 2 feet deep, I guess I should say, and about 5 foot wide. And then I'm hoping to planning to put a flap on the end, if you will, or a kind of like a raisable shelf that'll go on the end of it. I just bought the brackets today off of Amazon for that, and so what I can do there is I can put that flap down to wheel it around and for ease of movement and whatever. But if I need to be able to, if I want to work with like a full sheet of plywood, something close to 8 feet, or just a longer piece of any kind of longer piece of wood, I can simply raise that flap, which will probably be somewhere in the 30 to 36-inch range, and get close. Have a full table that's close to between 7 and 8 feet, basically, which is a pretty nice length of workbench. And then, using something like a saw guide, for my circular saw, I should be able to cut down pieces of 8-foot material fairly easily. And so then also, possibly building in some features into the workbench, allowing me to, kind of like either, I don't know if I'll do actual holes, like actual dog holes, or if I'll figure out some other system, but something to where I can, slide a piece of wood on there, holds it nicely in place for me, while I cut it with the circular saw and that kind of thing. I would like a clamp of some type, like a vise of some type. There again, Probably not big enough of, may not be big enough of a priority for me to spend money on that right now for the workbench. But I don't know. I may get inspired to buy a modestly priced one that, even though it's far from like the ideal device, that may still allow me to do some things. Also thinking about having a pretty nice, a lot of workbenches have no overhang, so the top is just flush with the edge of the, like if you have a 2x4, I'm not even sure what the right term is, but going, wrapping around the edge, and then it's just if you have plywood or whatever your top surface is, just have it flush with that. Or of course, these real hand working benches will often have like a 3 to 4 inch thick, like solid wood top. But when I say solid wood, as in, yeah, depth of wood glued together. So, but in my case, I'm thinking that, especially if I'm not sure if I'm going to use dog holes, because my top may not be thick. It may just be a piece of plywood on top. So if I don't have enough thickness for kind of a dog hole type situation, I'm planning to bring my plywood out past the edge of the frame that's underneath it, a couple inches on most sides, and that will, I think, allow me to really easily just hand clamp boards on there when I'm trying to work with them. And so I think that'll make a super easy way to clamp. And then I may figure out some fancier stuff with dog holes or some other types of clamps too. Not quite sure on all that yet. If I were to, well, okay, here's another issue. So just today, I contacted, they're building a new house next door to us, and I contacted the builder and asked him about, salvaging materials that are laying around. And so it turns out there's a fair bit of like 2x4 or 2-inch stock, whatever, that I could salvage. And I got some sheets of smart side type siding, or at least one sheet salvaged as well. So now I'm kind of considering a little bit, well, do I change my strategy a little bit to make it into an all salvage project, to where obviously I'll have some hardware that I purchased, but as far as the wood itself, basically make it all just just stuff that I'm salvaging, and call that good? Or is it like, well, if I'm doing the work anyway, better to spend a couple $100 and just build it really nice and correctly? So I'm not quite sure where I'll come out on that yet. I'm kind of leaning towards the salvage because, it's my first workbench, and on the one hand, while it may last for a very long time and it may be the only workbench I build and blah blah blah, so you could say, well, do it right. The other hand, it's like, maybe just, if God's providing me with free material, like maybe just use the material, and I don't expect to be like, this workbench, as far as I know, will have limited use. Like, I expect it to be really handy when I need it, but then I don't expect to be using it every weekend. So, I'm not a guy who loves to constantly, I'm not a big, huge woodworking guy. It's more like, hey, if I need to do something around the house, or I want to build a little project, then I want it to be really easy and comfortable and handy to do my work. So, I don't believe that I need a really, really amazing, hugely solid or wildly intensely level surface, or some of those things of like these sort of Scandinavian workbenches or whatever that are just built like tanks. I don't think I need a workbench that's built like a tank. For me, even being lightweight is actually a plus, because, at least somewhat lightweight, because It'll make it easier to roll in and out of storage, in and out of my, where it'll be sitting indoors to go outside and work with it. And if I need to roll it across dirt or grass, and then obviously lighter is better for that. So yeah, so it's I'm trying to make, I want something that's really functional, but at the same time, it does not need to be like the ultimate workbench. I don't believe. I just don't think I'm going to use it enough, and I don't think my tasks are demanding enough on the whole for that to be a necessity. And we have other things that we could use our money on. So, and also I do get somewhat of a joy out of salvage type projects. So in the past, I have scrounged around and made do with various things that I found for low cost or free. And so that is its own pleasure and its own challenge to make those materials work. So that can be fun. But at the same time, you can also sometimes spend so much time trying to get your salvage items to work properly that maybe you should have just gone to the store and bought it. So there is that. I do figure that my hardware that I'm using, like the casters and the foldable shelf brackets, I figure that if in the future I decide to build a fancier workbench, that I could simply move them over to the new one and use those for that if I want to. So my investment there, I feel like, is kind of protected, if you will. So anyway, having now gone on for well nigh 12 minutes on my workbench plans and desires, that is the workbench update for now, and maybe I'll show you some footage of the workbench after I have it built, which I believe I will have it built before the year of videos is over.